Welcome, everyone, to our second event. Welcome back to those who were with us last week to the Learning for Humanity Mental Health and Psychosocial Support webinar series. In our first session, we began with an important discussion about caregiver well-being, burnout, and self-care. Many of you shared reflections about the pressures and responsibilities that come with supporting others. And today we're going to continue that discussion by building on that conversation through exploring the basics of mental health and psychosocial support. During today's session, we will explore the concept of moral injury, which caregivers may experience when they face difficult ethical situations or feel unable to meet the needs they see. We'll also cover the importance of creating a practical self-care plan to sustain our work and protect our well-being, as well as an introduction to the core concepts of mental health and psychosocial support, including how mental health care and psychosocial support work together across different layers of care. We're also going to encourage participation throughout the session. So please write your comments in the chat and we'll address them as appropriate and answer any pending questions in the email that we send out with the recording of this session. Today, we're fortunate enough to have two facilitators guiding this session. First, we have Efrata Gazengen from last week. Is whoever was here last week also met her then. She's a mental health professional with experience in trauma-informed care and psychosocial support programs. And today we have Brianna Beamer, who brings experience in global mental health, in specifically within the arts and community-based mental health support. So before we begin, uh, let's have everyone write in the country that they're joining from if you haven't done so yet. And it's just really encouraging to see how many people are benefiting from this webinar and where you're joining us from today. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Effie and Brianna.
Yes. Thank you so much, everyone. Welcome back. I want to ask for 1 second before sharing my screen, just to pull up one thing and we will go on.
So while as we're beginning, I just want to get a little feel for how everyone is coming in today. So if you guys could just drop one word in the chat, describing how you're coming. If you're energized, curious, tired, anything like that, let me know how you're feeling so we can kind of adapt this webinar to your energy levels. I see tired, energized, great. Ready to learn, nice. Awesome. Keep on putting in how you're feeling, but thank you for sharing. It's always helpful for us to see the range of energy that people are bringing into sessions like these. So, Effie, I'll turn it over to you.
You're on mute, Effie.
Apologies. Welcome back again. I am so glad you're here. We are just getting started. Thank you so much for joining in. Okay, to get started, I know Govinda has gone through the learning objectives. So today we are gonna go through the moral injury, talk a bit more about self-care plans, and understand the MHPSS much more in depth today, and start talking about how as caregivers and for frontline workers, what we do in the MHPSS pyramid, and we will move on. This will lead us to our next session, which would be to build on our practical counseling skill, practical MHPSS skills that we can use at the facilitation space, at the workspace that we are in. Just to break the ice, I would like to invite anyone honestly, to share and answer any of the questions that you see on the screen. First one would be, how would you spend your day if you had unlimited time and resource? Um, what's something on your desk and nearby wall or out of the window that cheers you up during the day if you're sitting by your desk right now? Last one is, would you rather have the ability to speak all language or play all instruments?
As you guys are coming up with answers, I'll just share. I would definitely rather the ability to speak all languages, especially in this work. You know, it's so sensitive.
Mhm.
You want people to be able to talk about their experiences in whatever language they're most comfortable with. So that has always been, I have always wished that I could speak any and all languages.
You're right. That is such a cool skill to have, honestly. I would like to play all instruments. I think musicians have this um, amazing skill and ability, and I don't know, there's something about them I really want to inherit. It would be cool to play all instruments.
So everyone else, we're waiting to hear from you. You can pick any of the questions, you can put it in the chat, or if you want to take 1 minute to come off of mute, you can share. I see the speaking all languages,
Yes.
learning new language through song. That is a unique twist. Speaking all languages,
Yeah, mixing both.
that's amazing. Let's give like 30 more seconds to see if anyone else wants to respond to this, and then we can move on to the next slide.
Okay.
A lot of languages. I love it.
Yes. Listening more, speaking all language. I have a Bible verse by my desk that I look at to cheer me up. Really love that. Something encouraging throughout the day that you can see. Thank you so much, everyone, for sharing. So to get started, last week someone in the chat or someone in the meeting have mentioned moral injury when going through caring for the care session. Um, that is such an important concept in the healthcare and humanitarian work overall too. So I wanted to briefly introduce it today. I wanted to ask you something. I wonder if you have done everything right. Um, everyone this meeting today, whether you've done everything right, you showed up, you followed protocol, you have given everything that you have, and still you went home feeling like you had failed, like the situation was impossible, but somehow the weight of it all lands on you. And that is what we call a moral injury. That is one of the least talked about wounds in caregiving work. Moral injury is not necessarily a mental illness. Um, Moral injury is not necessarily a mental illness. It's not, like we said last week, it's not a burnout. Though it often travels alongside burnouts, it's something more specific. This is what happens when you are placed in a situation where your actions or your inability to act violent violates your deepest values you hold. When you know that you are right, you know the right thing to do is, but the system you are in, the workplace you are in, or the resource you have in your hand, or the circumstance prevent you from doing the right thing. The term actually comes from military research, soldiers who had followed orders that conflicted with their ethics. But researchers realized that it shows up everywhere people care deeply about doing the right. Doctors, nurses, community health workers, social workers, teachers, parents as well too. Think about a nurse who has only one dose of medicine and two children who need it. She makes a decision because she has no choice. But she goes home that night carrying both children in her heart. That's moral injury. Or a health worker who was told he has to discharge his patients too early because there are no more beds, knowing that they are not ready, um, because he has to follow instructions, not because anyone felt. It's not necessarily because the caregiver is ignoring this problems. Rather, there is a problem that cannot be ignored, but is conflicting with your ethics and with your moral as well too. I wonder, has anyone in this meeting today ever felt like this, where the situation felt impossible, not because of your skills, but because of the system you are in, because of the circumstance you are put in? I'll just give us 30 seconds to just um, let anyone share.
And while we're waiting, I can actually share an experience from my own parent who was looking for help for a child who had severe autism. Obviously, he needed specialized support, therapy, services, structured care, the kind of
Yeah,
resources that, can make a huge difference for families. And the
yeah,
father had clearly been trying to do everything he could. He had
yeah.
spoken with schools, local providers, community organizations, and by the time he came to me, I could tell he was exhausted, but he still had hope that someone would be able to help him.
Mhm,
Um, but the reality was honestly that the community we were in just didn't have those types of services. There were no specialized programs. And so I
mhm,
remember sitting with that realization and knowing that despite wanting to help, there was nothing that I could do. I had nowhere to refer him. There was no solution that I could offer in that moment. And afterwards, it's just, I felt this mix of frustration and helplessness and responsibility that I couldn't like approach. I wasn't able to actually do what I felt I was responsible for. And this wasn't because I was doing anything wrong, but simply because the system in place didn't have the supports that the family needed. And this kind of experience, it happens, like you said, Effie, it happens when someone cares deeply about helping, but the system or the resources just fall short.
Thank you. I'm just going to remind everyone to slow down in your speech so that the interpreter can catch up. But I'm going to, listening to your story, Brianna, I think a lot of our health workers and everyone in this meeting can definitely relate. I've heard it called referrals to nowhere.
yeah.
It is a referral to nowhere because the protocol is, for example, for a mother who is experiencing severe postpartum depression, refer. But
Mm,
where do you refer them to when there are no referrals, where there are no resources to give? And this can cause that conflicting feeling, which is termed moral injury. I think the takeaway here is really to know that it's called something, to know that others are experiencing it, and
yeah.
that we are, when we're able to name something, then we're able to know that we're not alone, that other people are going through this, and doing our best with the resources that we do have.
Yes. Thank you so much.
Exactly.
Yes. Um, Someone in the chat also answered, and I would like to read it out loud. Sarah Wilhelmina have said, had a situation where I was to transfer the patient to a bigger facility, but the patient refuses to go. I felt helpless and frustrated and having to take up responsibility if anyone happened to be a patient to the patients. Yes, that would cause a lot of dissonance within us, of discomfort as well too. Lori Leatherbett, um, giving comfort care and watching someone die when there was nowhere in the country, or to refer them to not having resources, but knowing they exist in other countries don't seem just. You're right, exactly like Govinda have said, referral to nowhere seems like the situation in the circumstance we are in is not allowing us to refer and use any of available resources that are out there that we hear and know about, but it not existing in our community.
Thank you to everyone who's putting in their comments into the chat. We really appreciate hearing from you, and we're definitely feeling for you, and we understand.
Yes. Thank you so much, everyone. Um,
I just want to, sorry, I just want to pinpoint, there's a very interesting question on the chat that either now or in a little while we can address from Sister Delphine.
okay.
Second to last question. Yeah.
Oh,
But we can do it later. I just want to make sure that it doesn't get lost.
okay. We will make sure to get back to it. Yes, thank you so much. Looking into moral injury and the common signs, we have briefly talked about it, but looking a bit in depth into it and looking in depth into the signs and how we can get support and when we face any moral injuries. The first and the most prominent one is guilt or shame. Even long after the event, even long after the situation happened, questioning whether you are still the right person for this work, losing the motivation or meaning that brought you into the caregiving. Feeling angry at leadership, system, and institutions, or feeling disconnected from your own values and purposes are the most common symptoms. Even though these are not the only signs and symptoms, these are the most common and very important ones that shows up very frequently and very loudly as well too. These signs are not these signs that someone's moral core has been wounded and they need support. Then you don't just need rest, you need support. Now, what makes moral injury so difficult is to deal with this. It is very complex, and one of the hardest parts. I see hands from Caroline. Can we take questions right now, or?
Please place your question in the chat, and when she's done with the slide, we can address it. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much, Caroline. What makes moral injury so difficult to deal with is because it is complex. And one of the hardest parts is that when you are living inside the system, when limitations are just the daily reality of your work, it becomes almost impossible to set back and recognize it in what it actually is happening to you. When working within the system's constraints, it's just Tuesday, when it's just how things go. You stop seeing it as an ethical conflict as well too. And somehow and somewhere in the long way, you start internalizing it too. You think this is just my job. This is just how work goes. And the weight builds up without any name. That's why the first and most important step is simply this: being able to openly and clearly name the ethical dilemma you are experiencing. Not to solve it, but just naming it. This is the situation that puts me in this conflict with my values. This was not okay. That naming it is the act of honesty. This is where honesty and healing starts towards working on our more healing from the wounds of this injury. And what supports that is peer support, others who have shared the same injury. So people realize that you are not alone and not the problem as well too. Supportive supervision that makes space for these conversations rather than pushing through them, and reconnecting with your values and purposes, reminding why you came into this work before the system started asking too much of you. Yes.
So I'm interested to see what strategies are people already using to support moral injury? What helps you process difficult situations at work? And it might be talking with a colleague, prayer, taking a walk, journaling, or anything else. So please just take maybe 30 seconds and think about what helps you in these types of situations. You can type it in the chat or you can come off of mute.
Yes. Kanabasa on the chat have said, I would acknowledge their injury and offer my support. Yes, acknowledging their injury, the injury they are in, whether they are colleagues or patients as well too is, and offering your support. Thank you. Lori have said daily devotions and prayer with a group of clinic employees every morning. Yes, coming in together with your colleagues to pray and devote your day. Give yes.
I want to point out Lori's comment. That's a very, very good thing that you can do as a team. Oh,
Yeah.
I just realized my camera was not on. As a team, if you're working in a hospital or if you're working in a school and there was a difficult situation, you can have a debriefing with your team. What went wrong, especially after a death, you can have a debriefing. What went wrong? What can you do to improve? What is the learning? And just taking a moment to of silence to think about the person who just passed, if it is in fact a death that happened. That's a very, very important moment that you can take. A debriefing as a leader, you
Mhm.
leading a debriefing as a leader can bring your team together so that
Yes.
there is no blaming or fault. So it unifies you as a team and it allows everyone a moment.
Mhm. I think she replied as well too and said, debriefing after a difficult situation. Yeah, debriefing after the situation, like Govinda have said, talking about you about the situation and hearing it from different perspective from your colleagues as well too. It's very important to work on and naming the ethical dilemma that you are in, recording, reconnecting with my inner self in prayer. Yes, Elizabeth. Reconnecting with your inner self and questioning yourself, and seeing what is the conflict you are going through. It's not just an external thing, rather an internal thing as well. Thank you, everyone, for sharing. Um, let's shift now to something very practical that we can use um, when going through the burnout that we have talked about last week and the moral injury that we are going over today as well too, which is self-care. And before anyone honestly says, oh, self-care, and just ignore it, I want to reframe what self-care actually really means. Self-care is not necessarily a luxury. It's not something that you do when you have extra time, which as caregiver you rarely do. Self-care is a strategy. This is how you stay functional enough to keep showing up to the people that depend on you, to show up for people that you care for. Looking at the benefits, a self-care plan reduces stress, burnout, it improves your physical health, it builds self-awareness, it strengthens your emotional resilience, and it actually improves your relationship as well too. Because when you are resourced, you show up better for others. Think of it like this. On an airplane, they always say, put on your own oxygen mask before helping others. Not because you matter more, but because you cannot help anyone if you are not breathing. What is one thing you currently do or used to do that helps you restore your energy? type it on the chat. We'll give it 30 to 45 seconds to just reflect and see.
One thing that I really like to do is just kind of go into myself and read a book in silence. Like if I am starting to feel really overwhelmed, I kind of seclude myself for 30 minutes and just put myself in this whole other world that is the characters in my book.
Yeah,
That really gives me new energy to face the day.
it really does to step back and give yourself a breather. Yes. Um, I sometimes once in a while do that as well too. It really is helpful as well too, especially having to come from a whole day of work. I feel the emotional heaviness. I feel the ethical dilemma I have within me. I feel the patient's pain as well too with me carrying it back all the way back home too, and without turning off my phone and turning off my computer to just sit and sometimes pray as well too. It's really helpful for me.
Mhm.
Drinking
We
water.
have pottery, I see,
Hmm.
respite moments, we're taking a walk. And
Yes.
also, guys, feel free to come off of mute. We want to hear your voices as well. You don't have to just be in the chat.
Yeah. Um, to look more in depth about
Yeah,
your plan. Oh,
Yes,
yes.
Yes, Bila,
Delphine, yes,
we
please.
can
Yes,
hear
yes, I
you.
hear you guys. Great. Come on, share your self-care with us.
yes.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, self-care is very important, I think, to discover because, first of all, we should deeply appreciate your topic because it's just like the topic of what I'm facing day to day, the challenges of referrals, the challenges of working as a team, the challenges of getting things done for the day. But what I always pray first for myself is for the grace to live the day because yesterday is already past, tomorrow is still coming. But I have just today. I
Yeah.
came late because I just left the church and I was listening. I couldn't talk along the road. But I discovered that self care is very important. Like I put in the chat, it is very important sometimes to just take a walk from maybe a scene you are in
Hmm.
so much noise because I find myself I need to reason a lot to take decisions. But sometimes I take a walk outside. I come back with a fresh
Mm.
idea. Or if it is difficult that I have too much work, I just step out somewhere and I take cold water. I take some deep breaths. Sometimes I get into a unit where they are doing exercises. I join to do the exercises so that I just release the stress that is within me. And I find that very, very, very helpful to me.
Mhm.
Yes, that helps me to be able to live the day and always to come back to build my own energy because I need that energy to continue the day. Thank you so much. I like the topic.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. To step back and take a walk and giving yourself that, allowing yourself to take that space is very important. And I can see a lot of people sharing the same thing as well too.
Mhm.
I heard someone.
Mm.
That's perfect. And was there, Aaron, did you want to jump in still?
Oh yeah.
Yes, one of the importance of self-care for me is that I've always focused on the things that matters most in trying to prioritize the things that really makes me happy and avoid stress. By
Mm.
so doing, I've always tried to focus on positive things, stay away from negative people, negative thoughts, and places I think are not really beneficial to me or either harm me or my family. So I've always tried to be
Mhm.
positive. I've always tried to be positive and focus on the things that makes me happy. So that's the importance of self-care for me.
That's great. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Erin. Um, you're right. Stepping back from what is negativity and having that positive space for yourself is very important. Um, just for the sake of time, I'm going to talk more about the self-care and move on. But I will get back to the chat below and we'll talk more about it.
Before we jump into this, everyone, I just want you to take 30 seconds, quickly go run, grab a pen and paper. We are going to use this time to actually start to create your self-care plan. Even if you're not doing all 5 areas, pick one so we can start, but grab a pen, grab some paper. Let's begin.
Yes. So yeah, I am sharing a self-care plan resource later today under the resource folder that MFH has. And you will have it to keep as well too. But let me walk you through how you can actually use it, because a blank template is not only useful if you know where to start. So step one, evaluate your coping skill. This is absolute honesty. When things get hard, what you do actually, what do you do actually? Not what you know you should do, but what do you actually do? Some of us reach for connection, movement, rest, like we've said, prayer. Others reach for avoidance, overworking, shutting down. Both are normal. The plan starts with seeing yourself clearly. So when looking into ourselves clearly, we have a lot of areas in ourselves, right? We look at our physical, mental, spiritual, personal, economic as well too. So leave it as that, and let's all have on our notebooks, like Brianna has suggested, write down the things that we see in ourselves, that we notice, to clearly self-reflect and assess what is one thing, what is that thing that you are noticing in yourself. Is it a burnout? Is it a moral injury? Is it what is it that you see when you're doing a clear self-assessment?
And because we're all beginning this may be your first time doing a self-care plan, you can pick just one area of your life that you want to focus on for this conversation. And so I'll give an example that last year I had noticed that the spiritual area of my life was really slacking, mostly because I, have my job, I'm working 40 hours, and I'm not making that time to spend with God. And so I was able to really recognize that I was allowing that part of myself to fade away. And being brutally honest with myself, I recognize that I am prioritizing TV or reading or going out with friends instead of spending those 5 minutes. So that was a way that I had to be brutally honest with my spiritual area in my life. So just go ahead and pick one that seems most important to you right now and go ahead and do an honest assessment of where you're at.
I'm while everyone is doing that, I want to jump in and refer to um, Kenneth Miller's comment, which he's mentioned is an evidence-based self-care plan, which he wrote 7 to 9 hours of sleep, eating a healthy diet, regular physical exercise. And these three, the first three he mentions, are part of the physical, right? In what we have here on the slide, it's part of the physical body. So first, thinking about how our body is feeling so that our mind can feel good. Then it goes on to the fourth suggestion in this evidence-based self-care plan, he says, is participating in counseling to solve any problems, which goes into the mental aspect. And the last one says building relationships that permit giving and receiving love. And that is part of the spiritual and personal domains of this personalized self-care plan, which is on the slide.
Yes. Thank you so much. That goes deeper into those aspects of our lives as well too. I really love how you put it, Kenneth. Thank you so much. People have been answering as well too, saying I give myself peace through meditation. That is that goes under spiritual as well too, right? Even though you are it answers the self-care that we do as well too for the previous slide. Yes.
Has anyone been able to take some notes down? Give us an emoji in the chat if you've been able to write down some points in your note in a notebook. Of course, if it's too much pressure, then we are sending all of the slides and we are sending the recording. But just wanted to check in. I see the three emojis, so thank you for that.
Thank you so much. Um, yes. Step two is as we write down this brutal self-reflection and self-assessment without any judgment, we'll be looking into identifying your needs across your 7 areas and seeing, do I have a spiritual or self-care deficient? Am I attending my needs? Am I eating too much? This really goes in depth into the step one, honestly, and ask, oh, what am I actually, we are feeling stuck of, like, oh, physically I don't feel anything. You move on to steps two and see critical questions that would ask you, are you eating enough? Are you sleeping enough? So I would ask critical directed questions that would help and direct answer these 5 areas in our lives. The resource that we'll be sharing later on today would have a list of self-care, such as, most of it have been mentioned here too, like journaling, praying, eating well, and resting, taking a walk, and doing all different. And there are amazing ideas on this resource as well too, unique ideas that we can try out as a new hobby and as a new skill as well too. And the last one, and the last an easy step is address these barriers and place it and replace what isn't working. This is where most people get stuck, where we know what we should be doing, but something gets in the way, like time, energy, guilt, the feeling that others need us more. The plan asks you to name that barrier honestly. And then identifying just wanting to replace a negative habit with a positive one. Not 10 things, but just one thing. So to write it down, not just on your head, but on a paper or on your phone, honestly, or on your computer. A daily plan that covers body, mind, spirit, emotion, economy, um, your top 3 positive coping strategies, and an emergency plan. What helps you when things fall apart, and what to avoid when you are already overwhelmed. What I mean by emergency plan is, whenever a situation, an unexpected situation happens, and an emergency happens, and you can't really pull a time to take a walk, you can have a list of emergency um, self-care plans you can use, where, oh, a situation happens at an emergency facility. You can't take a walk, but you can always take a 5 minute to yourselves and do a grounding exercise. You can write down and list a tip of the top 3 things you can focus on or be grateful for that day. These are just a list of self-care examples that anyone can use, and you can see it on the resource later on as well too.
So
Um,
often we see that the things that are stopping us from self-care are either, as you mentioned, time, energy, or money. And we
yeah,
overinflate these things. So in
yeah,
my example with my spiritual area, I was telling myself that I didn't have the time. And
yeah,
what I did was just start small. I have 5 minutes. I can always find 5 minutes in a day to sit and pray or sit and read a Bible verse. But you can
mhm,
start with just these micro moments, these 5 minutes to go for a walk if something physical is your area, or to just have a deep breathing exercise if you're needing a mental break, or reaching out to a friend, sending a quick text message asking them how you're doing. These we like to call micro moments. They take 5 minutes or less. They are very easy to integrate into our day, and they start that self care planning.
yes. you so much. Taking that time and moment to go back to what is familiar and something that would ground you and something that would really help you find your balance back is very important. I want us to look into a familiar situation that we can see, maybe experience as well too. Before let me briefly bring us back to last week. We talked about burnout, emotional exhaustion, depersonalization, and reduced sense of effectiveness when we're experiencing burnout. We talked about how caregivers absorb other people's pain over time. We talk about the warning signs, the disconnection, the fatigue, the sleep, that sleep cannot really fix it. The feeling that the work no longer means what it used to. Somehow sounds so similar to moral injury, but burnout is quite different, like we've said last week. I'm bringing that back along with the moral injury and the self-care today, and want you to hold that in mind as I introduce Maria today. Maria is a nurse working in a busy clinic in Malawi. She is dedicated, she cares deeply, she shows up every single day for her patients, even when she's exhausted. But lately, something has shifted. She's constantly tired, she sleeps poorly, she finds herself with less patience, with her patients as well too, with her family, with herself as well too. And when she finally gets home, she cannot switch off. The day follows her as well too. And she tells to herself, I should be stronger. Others need me. Does that part of Maria feel familiar? And I want everyone, anyone who wants to share and answer this reflection, looking into Maria, what are the signs you notice? You don't necessarily have to answer every question, but any of the pressure you might see on Maria, the beliefs that influence her response, um, and from the things that we have looked into, the restores and the self-care plans that we have seen today, what sort of things would you suggest to restore her energy back? We'll go back to.
And go ahead and look at your own self-care and your own practices as well. What would restore you? What would you be able to suggest to Maria?
Yeah.
I want to see if I can get 2 responses and then we can move on to the next slide. But I'll wait for you guys' responses. Getting enough sleep? Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Anyone else have any recommendations for Maria? Understanding that it's not up to her alone, exactly, that she has a team. She's not by herself. Take a break and do something different. Oh, great. Your answers are just flowing now, aren't it? Thank you so much, guys.
Um, this is a case that we might see in our patients, in our colleagues, in ourselves as well too. That's why I'm bringing this back to the last to wrap up the burnout in the moral injury caregivers that would experience, and will help us to notice it in ourselves as a case study as well too, at a very simpler terms. I want us to move on and look into MHPSS back again.
Perfect. So a lot of you already have an idea of what MHPSS is since we've been talking so much about it between last week and then today as well. But what exactly is mental health and psychosocial support, or MHPSS? At its core, it's about supporting emotional, social, and practical well-being. It recognizes that when people are struggling, the support they need is rarely just one thing. And what makes MHPSS especially powerful for people in roles like yours is that it does not have to be delivered by a specialist. You do not need to be a specialist. So every time you sit with someone who is distressed, every time you listen to them, every time you help someone feel less alone, you're already providing MHPSS. So even if you don't know the clinical word of it, you are doing it every single day. So if this resonates with you, I want you to type yes in the chat. If you are feeling like what you're doing is already MHPSS, just type yes in the chat. Exactly. So you guys are already aware, you are already doing this. Great. Can you go to the next slide?
Yeah.
Perfect. All right, so we're going to clarify two terms that are often used interchangeably, mental health and psychosocial support. They are different though.
Anna, you're doing a great job. Both of you are. Thank you so much. If you could just slow down just a little bit for our interpreter. Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. So I want to do a quick quiz with you guys and see if you can tell which one is focused on mental health versus psychosocial support. So mental health focuses again on emotional and psychological well-being and when needed clinical care. And psychosocial support is broader. It includes the everyday support. So here we go with the quiz. It's just 4 examples. So the first one, individual counseling session with a psychologist. Is this mental health or psychosocial support? Put MH if you think it's mental health and PS if you think it's psychosocial support. Individual counseling with a psychologist. Perfect. Mental health. Great. Okay, our second example, community support group where people share experiences. Community support group where people share experiences. Yes, PS, psychosocial support. Perfect. All right, our third example, medication prescribed for severe depression. Medication prescribed for severe depression. Mental health or psychosocial supports. Exactly, mental health. And the last one, a community activity that helps people reconnect after a crisis. A community activity that helps people reconnect after a crisis. Psychosocial support. And you'll notice in both of the examples where psychosocial support was the answer, community was a part of the example. So much of psychosocial support is focused on community aspects, which is why you are all in a perfect position to provide the psychosocial support.
Brianna have said this is where we are, this is where you are. This pyramid shows this is the most important framework in MHPSS. And once you see it, you can never unsee it. At the base, the widest layer are basic services and security. Services and security, safety, shelter, food, information, routines, dignity. Before any mental health work can happen, these foundations need to be in place. A person who is not safe cannot process trauma. A person who is starving cannot focus on healing. So this is the basic services and security, where basic service happen. Moving up, we have community and family supports, where peer groups, faith practices, social connections, safe spaces are at. This layer keeps people from falling deeper into distress. Moving up, we have a community and family support. Supports. Oh, apologies. Moving up, we have the focused support, where we have the structured counseling, the psychological first aid, the group supporting programs, the case management. This is where focused supports, directed patient care started happening, started giving services. And moving up in the last one, the top one is specialized services, the psychiatric care, the medication, and the intensive therapy. Like Brianna have said in the mental health and the psychosocial differences, we see the mental health specific directed specialized care happening at the top with people with that skill giving that services with psychological and psychiatric care and therapy, prescribing medications and treatment. But to move all the way up, we have to go through all this pyramid and lead our patients all the way to specialized services if they need it, which we'll go through later on. I wonder whether caregivers here, frontline workers, where you see yourself here. Where do you think we are at?
There may be some of you who are physicians or able providers who are able to prescribe medications. So you might be at the specialized services. There are some midwives who are also able to provide medications. So you can say, I'm a specialized service provider. If you are a counselor, then you are focused support, for example. If you work in a clinic that offers peer group and community activities, you would be in the community and family support system, right? If you work somewhere with nutrition programs, and you focus on other types of basic services, then you're in the basic services and security. So if we can have a few people share. Oh, Sister Kumshalat is sharing community and family support. Uh, Thank you so much for sharing. I know that they provide a lot of peer support group for new mothers. Lori also saying that they provide basic services. Thank you.
For sure. Yeah.
And the reality is, most of the people that we are interacting with, they fall in these lower levels. The specialized services are only usually for more severe cases. And that is beneficial to the community, but also to the professionals providing it. If we don't have basic services, community and family support, or focused support, everyone is just going to those specialized services, and there's not enough people. As you guys all know, there's not enough therapists or doctors or social workers to be able to take care of everyone in the community. So if we are able to provide them these lower level supports, then it makes the whole system run smoother.
True. And this is the MHPSS system, and this is the MHPSS structure and framework that organizations, humanitarian workers, humanitarian organizations, or even hospitals, any care facility is operating under. Everyone in the facility has a role, the basic to the specialized services as well too. Every part very crucial, every part equally important. Looking into the middle layer that the caregivers are at, so I want us to look into what caregivers do in the middle MHPSS layer. Providing safe, dignified support, creating space where people feel respected and not judged. This means facilitating community participation, connecting people to their networks and communities as well too, creating that connection and relationship and restoring what is being lost. It means connecting people to appropriate care as well too, when they need something beyond what you can offer. And this means providing layered support that meets people where they are at right now. And there is a skill that runs through all of this, one that takes practice, but this is accessible to everyone. Learning to recognize distress across different cultural contexts. This is a very crucial and very important skill that I am I'm pretty sure everyone here in this meeting has this skill, which is to understand the patient, understand the person that we care for, even though we have this culture and language barriers to see their distress in their physical, in their face, and where they are at as well too. This is a way to safely and dignified, in a very dignified way, to recognize where they are at. Distress does not always look the same. Language varies across culture, and many communities, people express emotional pain through physical descriptions. Like, my heart is heavy, I have head pressure, I feel tired in my bones. Spiritual explanations appear, like social meaning shapes how suffering is expressed and understood. Your job is not necessarily to translate this into clinical terms. Your job is is to hear them as real, because they are real, and respond with care. Um, I want everyone to put in the chat and see and recognize what you and your community have heard described as struggling or like distress as well too. It could be any language. Share one phrase that you have heard being used by a patient or a community member.
Yeah, does anyone in their community have words for depression or anxiety, attack of nerves?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this spiritual explanation may appear as well too. Um, we have covered a lot today, and I want to make sure it actually lands for you before we close. So let's take a few minutes for honest reflection. I have 3 questions, and these are updated to reflect everything that we have explored today. From today's session, moral injury, self-care, MHPSS, what felt more relevant to you in your own work and experience? And what feels possible for you to do differently after today?
Thank you so much for wrapping up. The last couple slides may have felt a little rushed because we are wrapping up, but there is comments in the chat that are coming in about certain things that people say in their communities. I encourage everyone to read them. One comment is, I can't eat. And I know that children sometimes say this a lot when they have anxiety. They don't know how to say, I'm anxious. They don't know how to say, I'm not sure what's happening, but they say their stomach hurts. And it's not really a stomach ache, but it's their nerves and the butterflies in their stomach. And so please read all of the comments that are in the chat. You can go ahead and stop sharing, Effie. And while I close out, I want you to continue sharing in the chat. Our last share will be what you felt was the most relevant from today's discussion. This helps us improve our presentation. So please share what was the most relevant for you and your own work from today's webinar. I would like to thank Efrata and Brianna for guiding us through today's discussion. Today, we explored several key ideas, including moral injury, the importance of developing a self-care plan. Hopefully, you were able to write down some notes, the foundations of MHPSS as well. We have a learning path. Learning for Humanity has a learning path on MHPSS. Our next cohort starts in June. Esther, would you please in the chat put in our website and also our admin email? Thank you. So you can explore our learning path on this website that is going to be shared shortly in the chat as well. And you can reach out to us via email. Today, we also discussed how MHPSS is not only about clinical mental health, but it includes a wide range of support, and our learning path can help you explore more of this. Thank you again for joining us, and thank you again for the work that all of you do in our communities. Our next session is in 2 weeks. So not next week, but in 2 weeks is our third session on mental health and psychosocial support. We will focus on practical counseling skills. This does not mean that you will be a counselor. It is not a training and it is not a certification, but these are practical ways to listen to people, which all of us need. We can all improve our communication skills. So practical counseling and community support, where we will explore ways of being supportive within conversations and how to respond to people who are experiencing distress. We hope to see you all there, and we want to know your feedback. Again, our email is in the chat. Please reach out to us in the chat and via email so that we can continue the conversation. And I hope that everyone has a wonderful rest of your week. I will take one quick picture, which we will include in the email. So if you do not want your picture taken, please leave your camera off. Oh, I see someone already working on their self-care and going for a walk. Okay, one, two, and one more, because there are so many of us that we are on two different screens. One, two, three, and thank you so much. And thank you to our interpreter as well.
Thank you
Have a-
very much. Hello.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
So
Looking
much.
forward to seeing you in a couple weeks.
Thank you, everyone. Don't move. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Session.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Bonjour, Annie.
Thank you.